UFC Fight Night Vegas 35, Barboza versus Chikadze takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Martinez versus Guido Cannetti, young versus old, 8-2 versus 8-6 Guido Cannetti. Both guys had original opponents that fell out, now they've been put together to save the card. Martinez, Guido Cannetti. I mean, I think I'm going to have to go with Martinez here. Don't get me wrong, Guido Cannetti is actually somewhat decent, but just... it's hard to pick him here against a guy like Martinez. Younger guy, got some momentum back after losing on the Contender Series recently. Would he have been signed to the UFC anyway? I know you're supposed to take on Trevin Jones on short notice. That fight ended up not happening, but in hindsight, maybe he would have beaten Trevin Jones because Trevin Jones looked terrible last night. Maybe Martinez shouldn't have taken this one, but he's gotten Guido Cannetti instead. I assume that he had like a Rona syndrome in one of his cornermen. Now it's out of their system, or now they've removed that cornerman and retested everyone. Now he's allowed to fight this weekend. That's the only reason I would assume they would suspend one fight for 1 week. Otherwise, what injury is it that you can recover from a week later? I'm assuming that's what it is. Martinez, very good fighter. Hasn't beaten the best opponents outside and afterwards, after his Contender Series show. He beat 7-4 guy Casey Jones, 12-6 Jose Johnson. Not the best wins in all honesty, but before that, he beat some pretty good names. 3-0 David Rivera, 9-1 Ricky Turcois, who's in the co-main event on this very card, in the finale of The Ultimate Fighter. I think he's actually going to go out there and have a really great performance. Yeah, he got triangle choked by Draco Rodriguez, but I think he's going to do okay against Guido Cannetti, who's coming off some losses. Left hook KO to Dana Batgarel in the first round. Brutal KO as well. He's been finished multiple times in his career by submission as well. Marlon Vera, Kung Hyo Kang, who's not the best guy to lose to. The guy was 13-7 at the time that he lost to him. I'm going to have to go with Martinez here getting a finish. I'll say he gets it done by TKO in the first round. He's a very wild starter. He's got knockout power. I'm going to go with him in the first round by KO against Guido Cannetti. Guido Cannetti, 41 years of age. He's been in the UFC for quite some time now after losing on The Ultimate Fighter in 2014. They kept him on in the UFC and they've just kept on giving him fights against opponents that he's supposed to lose against, but sometimes he beats them and sometimes he loses. I think now that he's 41 years of age, coming off that KO loss against Dana Batgarel, he had a training camp for Mario Batista. I just feel like he's going to get chinned here against Martinez, who starts really fast and gets straight to it. I think Martinez gets this one done. Moving on up the card, Jamaal Emmers versus Pat Sabatini. I'm going to go with Jamaal Emmers. I like Jamaal Emmers. I think he's a pretty decent fighter in all honesty, and I'll tell you this, Pat Sabatini, I watch him fight. Don't get me wrong, he's beating opponents and he is coming off of wins. He doesn't, like, ridiculously impress me when I watch him fight. In fact, I notice a lot of fundamental holes in his game. Not to mention the fact that his arms are like T-Rex arms, in all honesty. We're going to have a 4-inch reach advantage here for Jamaal Emmers. A massive height advantage as well. With that reach advantage, he's also a little bit bigger. Maybe he does get out-grappled here. That's the only way I could see Pat Sabatini going out there and winning. But then again, he didn't really do anything that crazy on top of Tristan Connolly as he was moving down. And I think Jamaal Emmers, young guy, 32 years of age, still in his prime, not over the hill yet. I think he's going to go out there and have a good performance against Pat Sabatini here. It's not the best underdog pick, but I'm taking it because I like his fundamentals. I think he's very, very sound. He's lost some fights in his career, but let's be honest, split decision to Giga Chikadze is not looking that bad anymore since Cub Swanson got his fucking guts kicked out of him. I feel like Jamaal Emmers is secretly somewhat good. He got head kicked by Julian Erosa at one point and KO'd. Little bit of a weird one there. You get head kicked, it's okay. Lost to Thiago Moises earlier in his career by 5th round TKO. I mean, these aren't bad fighters to lose to. Losing to Ray Trujillo is very, very bad. Don't get me wrong, but the other guys that he's lost to are good opponents and they've gone on to do amazing things with their own careers. And I like that he's taken on these guys in the early part of his career. Other guys would pad their records against Cans, but he's got a win over Corey Sandhagen. He beat him by unanimous decision in LFA. I really like Jamaal Emmers here as an underdog, and I think he's going to go out there and beat Pat Sabatini, who I've watched fight multiple times, And I know style-wise, Sabatini could go out there and just out-grapple Jamaal Emmers, but Jamaal Emmers is pretty decent at grappling, used some grappling against Giga Chikadze quite effectively as well, and we've seen other guys like Omar Morales not be able to get Giga Chikadze to the ground. I'm going to go with Jamaal Emmers here, coming off a win against Vince Cachero in August of 2020, so he's had an entire year off here, but he was supposed to fight in February, of course, against Chaz Skelly, but he fainted backstage, I believe, or something like that happened. I'm going to go with Jamaal Emmers over Pat Sabatini. I'm watching Pat Sabatini fight. I'm noticing a lot of holes in his stand-up game, and I could see Jamaal Emmers landing a lot of shots on him and winning the fight based on landing more shots. I'll say Jamaal Emmers, 29-28 unanimous decision. I assume he's going to get past the grappling of Pat Sabatini. We'll see how it goes. Moving on up the card, JJ Aldrich versus Viana Demopulous. I don't even know if that's her first name, in all honesty. I just saw the V. Vanessa Demopulous. I'm going to go with JJ Aldrich here. I actually think JJ Aldrich is kind of an underrated women's fighter. She's actually pretty decent, and even in her fights where she lost, like against Maycee Barber, she was doing pretty good against Maycee Barber in her fight. Dropped Maycee Barber, I believe, with a jab in the first round, and then eventually gassed out in the second in a brawl and ended up getting finished against a cage. Split decision loss to Sabina Marzo, who's pretty good, 7-1 at the time. Win over Courtney Casey by split decision in a very close fight. Beat Lauren Mueller, beat Polyana Viana, who was 10-1 at the time, Danielle Taylor, who was 9-2 at the time, Chan Mi Yon, who was 5-0 at the time. I think because she's flown under the radar, she's secretly been dealt a lot of tough competition opponents. She's been in the UFC for a while, been in the UFC since when? 2016, a lot of high-level fight experience. I'm going to go with her over Vanessa Demopulous, who I saw on the Contender Series, and I think she lost on the Contender Series. Who did she lose to? Corey McKenna. Lost on that one, got completely controlled. Close fight, though, good attitude. Lost again against Lupita Godinez, majority decision. Bounced back recently this year against Cynthia Arcio. I'm going to go with JJ Aldrich here, way more experience against much better competition, and she's not losing to the level of opponents that Demopulous is losing to, sorry. And also Demopulous, 32 years of age. It's not like she's a young up-and-comer that's only just got to the UFC. She's been around for a while, starting to leave her prime. I'm going to go with JJ Aldrich, still 28 years of age. Trains at a good gym as well. I see her training with Rose Namajunas, Valentina Shevchenko. You're going to learn a couple of things if you're training around that level of competition. I'm going to go JJ Aldrich here pretty confidently over Vanessa Demopulous by decision. Moving on up the card, Dustin Jacoby versus Darren Stewart. I'm going with Dustin Jacoby here. I like Darren Stewart. He's repping London. I respect him repping London, okay? I'm going to have to go with Dustin Jacoby, man. I have not been impressed by Darren Stewart's recent performances, even in the ones that he wins. First of all, I've discovered recently that he's actually a really, really small middleweight. And you didn't really realise that because of how muscular he is. But when you see him out there, he's a pretty small guy for the division. I'm looking forward to this matchup against Dustin Jacoby. I don't see it going too well for him, in all honesty. Moving up to light heavyweight division, he's not the biggest guy. I don't see him being able to out-grapple Dustin Jacoby because of that size difference that there's going to be. I can see Dustin Jacoby just not being able to be taken down. He's shown great takedown defense in his career so far upon rejoining the UFC. Earlier on in his career, it was a little bit of a hole in his game. Went away, improved it, I assume. Took some kickboxing fights, somehow improved his takedown defense. Went in there against Kutalaba. Did okay in that fight. Didn't get destroyed in the first round. I mean, he got 10-8 rounded, don't get me wrong, but it's not like he left himself vulnerable in positions that maybe he usually would do and gave up his neck or gave up a bad position, gave up mount. He kept very defensively aware against a cage. I don't see Darren Stewart being able to out-grapple him. So how am I supposed to see Darren Stewart out-striking him on the feet? This is Dustin Jacoby we're talking about here. Long, rangy guy for the division. Much bigger than Darren Stewart. Got the reach advantage as well, even though Darren Stewart has got a long reach himself. Dustin Jacoby, 76-inch reach at 6'2". I think he's going to go out there and get the job done. I'll say by TKO. I'll say Dustin Jacoby TKO in the second round. Chops Darren Stewart's legs up, chops up the body as well, and then starts going to work with the hands in the second round. And I can see him getting it done against Darren Stewart. Good style matchup, because Stewart likes to stand up. But I think you shouldn't be wanting to stand up against Dustin Jacoby, and he's a much bigger guy. I'm going with Dustin Jacoby by TKO in the second round. Moving on up the card, Sam Alvey versus Wellington Turman. You know what I'm fucking gonna do, man. I'm picking Sam Alvey. I don't think Wellington Turman's that good. And I like Sam Alvey as an underdog here. Don't get me wrong, Wellington Turman is good. He's 25 years of age. He still has time to improve. Donnie got KO'd 2 months ago. What are you doing back in the cage? Why did I just say Donnie got KO'd? I'm not a street youth of London. I'm sorry, that just slipped out my mouth. This guy got KO'd, to keep it professional here, okay? This guy got KO'd 2 months ago. Why are you back in the cage, dude? You got flatlined by Bruno Silva, and I picked him to do it as well, by the way. He flatlined you in the first round and KO'd you with ground and pound. You were out, dude. Before that, you got KO'd by Andrew Sanchez. This is 2 KOs in a row, and you're returning 2 months later against Sam Alvey, who's a tough guy, still got a good chin, got great cardio, got good grappling. I know he got choked out by Julian Marquez, put up a good fight in that one as well after taking some big bombs, still throwing back, put up a great fight against Darren Young in the light heavyweight division. I don't think Wellington Turman's going to have a great time here against Sam Alvey, and I think I'm going to pick Sam Alvey to get this one done. I'll say by unanimous decision. I just don't think Wellington Turman's going to have too much for him. I don't see him completely out-grappling Sam Alvey in any way. Sam Alvey's got decent grappling and grappling awareness as well, not to get himself finished in certain situations, unless he gets hurt with a massive punch, of course, like by Julian Marquez. I think he's going to go out there and just put a veteran's class of display, a veteran's display of skill on Wellington Turman and get himself a unanimous decision win as an underdog. I'm picking Sam Alvey to get this one done. Not been impressed by Wellington Turman. However, he does have gyno, and as like 1 in 10 UFC athletes nowadays, he has gyno, because that's not a trend that's popped up recently after Adesanya had it. I don't understand why everyone's got gyno all of a sudden, but Wellington Turman has it. I'm still picking against him. Fuck you, bitch tits. Sam Alvey gets the job done by unanimous decision as an underdog. Moving on up the card to the main event of the prelims. Antonio Braga Neto, no. No, not Antonio Braga Neto. Billion-dollar company's UFC schedule on Google. Not that name. It's someone else. It's Alessio de Chirico versus Abdul Razak Alhassan on that card. Sorry, it's only a $10 billion company. They can't update their fucking schedule. It's okay. I'm going to go with Alessio de Chirico. Abdul Razak Alhassan, don't get me wrong, post-rape case Abdul Razak Alhassan is not looking good. Pre-rape case Abdul Razak Alhassan, me gusta, you know? But the current version of him, he looks bloated, he looks fat, he doesn't look in the same kind of shape anymore. I know he moved up a division, but still, he's looking like Chubb out there. He looks like Deji out there, for fuck's sake. Either way, I'm going to go with Alessio de Chirico. Much larger guy, great on the feet, great chin, good cardio over 3 rounds, fought great competition in his career, and let's not get it twisted here. Alessio de Chirico, we kind of should have seen the Joaquin Buckley upset coming. The guy is a really, really underrated fighter, 31 years of age, in his prime right now. He's not an older guy out of his prime. In fact, I believe Abdul Razak Alhassan is actually older than him. I want to say Abdul's about 34. He's 36. I ain't picking him. Not just because of the height or the age, sorry. I'm going to go with Alessio de Chirico here. I think he's got it in him to win this one. He's got the reach advantage. He's got a size advantage. He's got a great chin. He can go 3 rounds pretty easily. He had a razor-close fight with Makhmud Muradov, and it's Makhmud Muradov, top-level guy, probably going to go on to win his next fight against Meerschaert on this card. We'll get to that in a second. I know I just spoiled it. Might go on to be a real threat in the middleweight division. Had a real close fight with Kevin Holland as well that arguably could have won. Who knows? They gave it to Kevin Holland. Split decision to Julian Marquez that he won. I believe that he's going to go out there and get this one done. I know he lost to Zach Cummings, but he's bounced back recently with a vengeance, and now he's got some momentum back. I think he's going to do good work against Abdul Razak Alhassan. He's been training for Alishkab Kizrayev, which means he's definitely been preparing for some takedowns, an all-round game of MMA. I think he might flip that and use some grappling on Abdul Razak Alhassan after watching how easily that other guy out-grappled him. Jacob Malkoun out-grappled Abdul Razak Alhassan. I think he's just going to be too big, win the grappling exchanges, win the exchanges on the feet as well, and just win every single round minorly to a 30-27 unanimous decision. Alessio de Chirico gets it done. Moving on to the main card, Makhmud Muradov, speak of the devil, versus Gerald Meerschaert. I'm going to go with Makhmud Muradov here because it's Muradov versus Meerschaert. That's why I'm going with Makhmud Muradov. It's Muradov versus Meerschaert. I know Meerschaert's decently okay. He just is really, really a dumb person. And I don't trust his fight IQ here. If you watch some of his fights that he's had, like against Jack Hermansson, pulling Hermansson on top of him, completely shitting his pants and giving up against I know he didn't give up against Khamzat Chimaev. He got KO'd in the first round. But the guy shat his pants out there, you know what I mean? You can't be seeing that from a pro MMA fighter. I know Makhmud Muradov would not shell up, move backwards, and put himself in the corner of the cage against Khamzat Chimaev. He'd go after him, he'd try and establish a jab, he'd try and get something going in that fight. Gerald Meerschaert shits his jocks against top hyped up contenders. I think he's going to shit his jocks here as well. And I see Makhmud Muradov going out there and getting himself a second round TKO towards the end of the second round against Gerald Meerschaert, who maybe puts up a good fight in the first round, shoots a couple of good takedowns, but gets him stuffed. A couple of good shots from Muradov to the body with the knees, maybe. And then Meerschaert starts to slow down as the rounds go on. I'm going to go with Makhmud Muradov pouring on the pressure at the end of the second round, getting a TKO win against Gerald Meerschaert. Meerschaert's got good grappling, but it seems to be purely based on the mistakes of his opponents, and Muradov knows he doesn't want to go to the ground. He's not going to do a Trevin Giles and shoot a single leg or anything like that. I think that he's going to get very, very outclassed by Muradov here, who stays on the feet, stays at range, incredible grappling, still got time to improve in MMA as well, new to the game. He has a lot of experience, but he's only just burst onto the scene in the UFC, got all of his momentum, all of the hunger. I think he's going to go out there and beat Gerald Meerschaert by second round TKO. Moving on up the card, Andre Petroski versus Michael Gillmore. I'm going with Andre Petroski. He looked great on the Ultimate Fighter, was beating Brian Battle until eventually getting caught in a bad position and submission. I'm going to go with Andre Petroski here over Michael Gillmore. Why the fuck are they on the card, though? They lost on TUF. You're supposed to win TUF. Remember the days when TUF was about, like, only the winner gets a contract? You win this, you'll get a contract. Then it became, you win this, you'll get a fucking title shot, which was weird. And then it became, just don't even fucking win, just show up, we'll give you a fucking contract. We got fucking nothing to go on in the UFC and our cards are shit. I don't understand. The level of the UFC has deteriorated so much recently. However, I am going to go with Andre Petroski here. Man, Michael Gillmore hasn't beaten great opponents, didn't look that good. 1-1, 2-2, 2-3, lost to a 2-0 guy. 3-2, 0-0, lost to an 0-0 guy, beat an 0-1 guy, lost to a 2-0 guy and Ricky Miller. Like, fuck is he doing here? I'm going to go with Andre Petroski. Maybe he could fluke a win and get his career from it, but I think this is just to show off Andre Petroski to the UFC guys and show that maybe that Brian Battle loss was a little bit of a fluke and a lapse of concentration. I'm going with Andre Petroski here, just grinding out a submission win in the third round against Michael Gillmore. Moving on up the card, Kevin Lee versus Daniel Rodriguez. I'm going to go with Kevin Lee. I'm going to go with Kevin Lee over Daniel Rodriguez. D-Rod taking this one on short notice. I'm going to flip and I'm going to lose because I'm flipping. I was picking D-Rod. I was picking Kevin Lee. I'm going back to Kevin Lee. I'm unflipping. I'm unflipping. Maybe this is for the good. I already flipped. I was Kevin Lee for months. Then I went D-Rod. No, I was Kevin Lee for days. Maybe hours, for fuck's sake. No, in my own brain. I was literally Kevin Lee for minutes. Then I switched to D-Rod. Then I switched back to Kevin Lee. I think 155ers are just way fucking better than everyone else. And that's shown every single time they move up. I think Kevin Lee in a 3-rounder can beat D-Rod. And I think he's going to beat D-Rod. And I think he's going to get it done by rear naked choke in the second or first round. I'm going to go with Kevin Lee, rear naked choke, first or second round. I'm trusting in Kevin Lee here. But am I? I just think 155 is so much better. He's got a reach advantage. He's had a full camp. And I know this from a fact. When D-Rod accepted this fight, he was eating hot dogs and milkshakes in Disneyland. That is not, I'm not making this up to justify a prediction, okay? Maybe on a full camp with 100% focus, D-Rod could go out there and get a good win over Kevin Lee, don't get me wrong. Maybe there's a potential in that. I'm going to go with Kevin Lee getting this one done, getting the takedown, getting the rear naked choke. I just see D-Rod maybe being a little bit of a problem in the later rounds if it does get there. So 3rd round TKO for Daniel Rodriguez might be a good prediction. But I am going to go with Kevin Lee, getting the takedown, getting the rear naked choke. I know D-Rod trains at 10th Planet, but I think Kevin Lee on your back is a bit of a different situation. Very, very strong for the division. Taking his time off. I'm going to go with Kevin Lee. He's got a reach advantage as well, which is going to help him against the boxing of Daniel Rodriguez massively. He's got a 3-inch reach advantage while being way shorter. And D-Rod does leave some openings in his own stand-up, and I think a 155er who's beaten great guys at 155 maybe does go out there and get a good performance against D-Rod. Don't get it wrong, man. Kevin Lee choked out Trinaldo with relative ease. Trinaldo had a real close, scrappy fight with Muslim Salikov. 155ers are so much better than every other division, maybe other than bantamweight, but moving up to 170 is like a massive difference. Look at Gilbert Burns, straight to a title shot. He couldn't even make rankings at 155. I'm going to go with Kevin Lee here over D-Rod. I think he's just too short notice for D-Rod. I don't think he's going to be prepared enough. He's not brought in loads and loads of great grapplers after great grapplers to prepare himself for this. I'm going to go with Kevin Lee getting it done. Rear naked choke at the end of the 1st round on D-Rod. Maybe even a standing rear naked choke over D-Rod. I'm trusting Kevin Lee to get this one done. Risky, but I'm picking Kevin Lee here. Moving on up the card. Ricky Turcois versus Brady, high stand. I'm going to go with Ricky Turcois by TKO in the later rounds. I'm going to go 3rd round TKO for Ricky Turcois. I think Brady high stand's going to have a great 1st round, get Ricky Turcois to the ground, out-grapple him for a little bit, settle in half guard, land some total strikes and some decent shots. Then Ricky Turcois starts to turn it around. The cardio starts to become a little bit more of a factor. He hasn't been finished in the 1st round. He starts going after Brady high stand in the 2nd, landing some good shots. In the 3rd round, I think he's going to pour it on, get a finish over Brady high stand, who doesn't have much experience being beaten up like that. Doesn't have the best record. Don't get me wrong, he's actually really impressed me on The Ultimate Fighter because I didn't expect him to be here in the finals of all places. Like, who would have seen it coming? But I'm going to go with Ricky Turcois, 28 years of age, way more experience. Brady Highstand has good grappling, but 0-6, 0-4, 0-0, 0-2. Lost to 9-5 Chad Anlinger by 3rd round TKO after grappling good and then eventually gassing out in the later rounds. Beat a guy who was 1-12. The fact that your gym are putting you against this level of competition shows that they know your shit. I'm going to go with Ricky Turcois, getting the job done. He's fought better competition. Josh Paver, who was 10-2, 4-1, 6-0 guy, Steve Garcia, who's now in the UFC, I believe, Steve Garcia Jr. I'm going to go with Ricky Turcois here, getting a good win over Brady Highstand by 3rd round TKO. Moving on up the card, Brian Battle versus Gilbert Urbina. I'm going to go with Brian Battle, man. He's improving rapidly. He seems to have improved a lot while being on the show. Don't get me wrong, he does leave a lot of openings that maybe Gilbert Urbina could take advantage of. But Gilbert Urbina, this is the thing about this season of Tough. He's shit. He beat one good guy, Noel Lagon, who was 5-0. Lost to Sean Brady, which is not a bad loss, don't get me wrong. Beat 7-3 guy, now he's on Tough, and now he's in the UFC. He's 5-1. I don't understand what they're doing here, but he's 25. He has got a chance to have a good performance here. Got KO'd pretty badly on Tough, and now he's turning around to take on Brian Battle. I think if there's going to be a chance at a finish, it's going to be Brian Battle finishing Gilbert Urbina, and I think I'm going to trust him to do so. Maybe in the 2nd or 3rd round by TKO. Gilbert Urbina has not had a lot of notice that this fight was going to be happening. Brian Battle knew he was going to be in the final. He's going to be switched on, and I can see actually, I'll go with a 3rd round submission for Brian Battle here, which is a great name. Battle, as a fighter, great surname. I'm going to go with Brian Battle by 3rd round submission over Gilbert Urbina. Moving on to the main event, Edson Barboza versus Giga Chikadze. I'm going to go with Edson Barboza here over Giga Chikadze. I like his chances. I think Giga Chikadze's good, but maybe we're a little bit... We're seeing one good performance against Cub Swanson and ignoring his other opponents and other levels of competition. I just said it earlier on this video. Jamaal Emmers took him to a split decision. Brandon Davis took him to a split decision. These are really worrying red flags, in my opinion. Don't get me wrong. He could go out there and body kick Barboza and put him down. Do I believe he's going to? in no way do I think he's going to get a quick KO over Edson Barboza. He might do, and maybe now I've jinxed it and put it out there in the universe for him to go and do it. But I think Edson Barboza is a way better striker, way more experience under the big lights. He's been in main events before. This is the big moment for Giga Chikadze. He's going to be full of nerves. Barboza, this is just another contender. Every day at work, another day at the office for Edson Barboza, a streaking contender. Yeah, I'll take him on, no problem. Just like Dan Ige, just like anyone else I take on. Shane Burgos, I'll take on these guys, no issues. Goes in there, has a good performance against Shane Burgos. Great performance as well, gets a finish in the third round, and didn't really look like he was slowing down as much as he usually does. I think Edson Barboza's been looking great recently against Makwana Mekani as well. Didn't look like he was slowing down there, had a great third round. I know he got controlled towards the end of it, but stopped any damage from happening. He seems to have got his cardio down. Maybe it's just from being at 145 and not having guys big enough to walk him down and pressure him. Giga Chikadze doesn't seem like the pressure type of fighter, and I can just see Barboza going out there, landing 5 calf kicks, and guess what? It's not Giga Chikadze anymore. It's a one-legged Jordan. It's a one-legged Georgian. Sorry. Edson Barboza goes out there. It's Edson Barboza versus Giga Chikadze. Edson Barboza lands 5 calf kicks in 1 minute. Who's this random Georgian guy? You know what I'm saying? I think Edson Barboza's going to go out there, put some hurt on Giga Chikadze's legs early, land some good shots on the feet. His boxing's very good, and I think he's just had more experience under these lights. I'm going to go over Barboza decision, 4 rounds to 1. Maybe he loses the 5th and wins the first 4. Maybe he loses the 4th and wins the first 3. Maybe he loses the last 2. I just know that Barboza will win 3 rounds of this fight, and that's enough to win him a decision, in my opinion. And Chikadze's not the kind of guy who's going to pour on pressure to get the job done in the later rounds. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to go with Edson Barboza here. Way better at striking, in my opinion. Way more experience against better competition. Way more proven over Giga Chikadze. He has the option to take things down as well. Let's not forget what he did to Paul Felder out of nowhere. Blast double leg from Edson Barboza. He could pull out some of those against Giga Chikadze just to keep him thinking. And listen, if Barboza's on top of him in full guard, he's a big boy. I don't know if Giga Chikadze's going to get back up from that. He doesn't even have to be a great grappler. Just being a big guy on top of Giga Chikadze that somewhat knows what he's doing, I think could keep Chikadze to the ground. I wouldn't be surprised if he shoots a double leg, seeing as Chikadze's such a big kicker as well. I think Barboza's going to go out there, chop the calf 5 times, and just take over from there, because calf kicks are no fucking joke, and he's going to win the calf kick battle unless he's fighting Justin Gaethje. Edson Barboza gets it done, decision win, clinging on for dear life maybe in the 5th round, but I think he's going to get enough of the early rounds to secure himself a decision. That's all there is on this card. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Edson Barboza, 4 rounds to 1, unanimous decision. Goodbye.